Tale of an Old Courtesan. It was long ago in the Shire, where a young woman worked for hire. The woman went by the name of Rahisha, and she was quite a beauty. No courtesan was more respected than Rahisha in her line of duty. With fair blonde hair and clear blue eyes, Rahisha was well admired. Every man in the brothel wanted her with a strong desire. However, there was a fisherman who lusted Rahisha with a strong passion. He was appalled when Rahisha showed any other man compassion. The fisherman was filled with so much outrage that he waited for Rahisha in the shadow of the night. When Rahisha was done with her shift, she began to walk home, but was stopped by an awful sight. The fisherman was drunk and attempted to take Rahisha's humanity. Rahisha grabbed a brick and thrust it into the fisherman's skull and managed to keep her sanity. The fisherman was unconscious and did not let out a single breath. Feeling for her life, since murder was punishable by death, Rahisha left. She was then stopped by a woman of the cloth who witnessed the terrible tragedy. The nun felt such empathy for the young courtesan, so she came up with the strange strategy. The nun then disguised Rahisha as one of her fellow sisters. Rahisha then gave up her own life that was full of sinners. When Rahisha and the nun returned to the cathedral, Rahisha was welcomed with many smiles. Rahisha was then asked to take part in a pilgrimage that was many miles. Rahisha had never felt so much love and kindness from strangers, so she agreed. The Pope then reminded her that the pilgrimage was to help other people's sins be freed. Rahisha knew what the purpose of the trip was, and she couldn't wait to make a difference in the world that was full of darkness. As Rahisha prepared for her journey, the fisherman awoke from slumber and was filled with madness. Rahisha thought she killed the fisherman, but she merely just knocked him unconscious. The fisherman heard the conversation between the nun and Rahisha in his subconscious. He then vowed that he would find Rahisha and make her his mistress or die trying. The fisherman left to the cathedral and began spying. All he saw was darkness, so he waited in the bushes till the first sign of light. When Rahisha woke up the next morning, she was filled with such delight. Everyone in the voyage met up in the front of the church to begin their journey. All the nuns were protected by a standing army. It was very important that the nuns were kept safe because they had an important role in pilgrimage to play. The pilgrimage was destined to a place that was extremely holy. People's mistakes and regrets were washed away, and it benefited them truly. For each nun there was a pony, and all the supplies was safely tucked away in a cart. When each nun was on her horse, the voyage began to start. The fisherman saw the preparation for the departure, so he safely hid away in the bags of supplies. The fisherman lifted his head ever so slightly, so he could catch at least one glimpse of Rahisha, but he almost did not recognize her in disguise. He was astonished by her magnificent beauty. Even in her uniform, her beauty was enhanced, and the fisherman felt slightly loopy. Her hair fell perfectly down her shoulders, and her eyes looked like the colors of the sea. The fisherman felt the need to speak to Rahisha at least once, and though he knew it would not be easy, he was willing to find a way. Rahisha was of course oblivious to the fisherman's presence, so she felt carefree. Everyone on the voyage was quite cheery. The nun who helped Rahisha wanted to learn more about her. She hoped that Rahisha would not take offense and cause a stir. Rahisha was excited to talk to the nun and answer all of her questions. She hoped that the nun would still be by her side even after her confession. The nun then asked Rahisha why she chose the life of a courtesan. Rahisha answered that when her family died, she gave in to a con man. The con man promised her a life of love and luxury, but the moment he won her heart, he tricked her into becoming a woman for hire. Rahisha explained that she was going to remain in that particular job until she gained enough money to retire. The conversation marked the beginning of a new friendship, and the nun developed a new respect for Rahesha's strength. The nun then promised Rahesha that she would provide friends many a length. From that day forward, Rahesha made new friends, and she finally felt content. But sadly, that feeling of content would not last forever due to an unexpected event. As soon as dawn approached, the fisherman was ready to make his move. Everyone is asleep. He quietly crept into Rahesha's room. Rahesha had a nightmare about the fisherman and was startled awake. When she saw the fisherman's face, she could not speak. Rahesha tried to run and find help, but the fisherman got in her way. The fisherman grabbed Rahesha by the wrist and begged her to stay. He was not thrilled by Rahesha's refusal. The fisherman told her that if she did not become his mistress, he would be extremely brutal. Rahesha was tired of giving in to adversity, so she stood her ground. The fisherman had a malicious smile and grabbed Rahesha and thrust her into a wall that gave her a wound. Rahesha attempted to release cries for help. Both the nun and the Pope awoke to Rahesha's yells. They both ran to Rahesha's room and were startled about the scene that lay before them. The fisherman was pressed against Rahesha, her eyes were filled with tears, and her dress was torn at the hem. The Pope pulled the fisherman off of Rahesha and began to give him a beating. The nun rushed to Rahesha and held her throughout her weeping. The Pope handed the fisherman over to the knights so they could take him to prison. As the knights departed, new questions in the Pope's mind had risen. Why had a nun been attacked? Maybe Rahesha was hiding something. The Pope walked into Rahesha's room and heard a soft humming. Rahesha knew that new questions had arisen in the Pope's mind, so she began to tell him the truth. After hearing Rahesha's story, the Pope did not say anything to Rahesha. He just put his hand on her back to soothe. The Pope promised that he would not reveal Rahesha's secret. The Pope left Rahesha's room and all was quiet. The next morning, the pilgrimage arrived in the holy city. The city was pretty. It had a sense of protection around it. Everyone began to forget their regrets. Rahesha never felt more happy in her life, and she knew that with the nun and the Pope by her side, no pain would ever befall her. At the sight of the Holy Land, everyone was rendered speechless, and that very moment was considered to be priceless. Rahesha felt tears forming in her eyes because she had never felt more at peace. Because her fear of the fisherman was released, she now had the opportunity to finally begin her life, since it was no longer filled with strife. The nun looked at Rahesha and had never felt more content, because she helped the once-known courtesan repent. If she had not disguised Rahesha, imagine the outcome. If Rahesha did run away, she most likely would have been caught, and once upon hearing her story, the officers would remain doubtful. They would throw her into prison. Rahesha would then wait till her sentence was given. Rahesha would have been executed because who would believe a woman for hire? Her story was so unbelievable, so they would call her a liar. Thank God this story did not end up this way, or else I would not have anything more to say. If it had not been for a nun's empathy and a priest's sympathy, Rahesha would not have lived, for only a lucky girl like herself would have been saved. Not every courtesan managed to turn a life around, but Rahesha was tired of being beaten down emotionally and physically, so she was willing to be found. The fisherman may have ruined her life, but it paved the way for a new one, although it could only be understood by some. Not everyone can control what happens in their life. We can choose how we reply. Because it is all based upon perception. Every horrible experience comes with a lesson. Rahesha had a choice between the two roads, deception and acceptance. She chose acceptance, and it granted her independence. Independence from a life filled with corruption and lies. And she was then introduced to honest allies. Allies that would never forsake her or abandon her, because nothing would cause them to deter. They loved her for each flaw, because he took her in without a single thought. They knew about Rahisha's past and did not overreact. Just because something horrible happened in your life, that does not mean that you should let it affect you. Just remember that you will somehow make it through. Who knows? Maybe you will meet new people that will love you for who you truly are. Always expect the unexpected, although it may be unclear.